Hi everyone, welcome to my show, From Stuck to Unstoppable, how divorce can be the catalyst for the most extraordinary chapter in your life. Learn how 21 mindset experts can help you shift, thrive, and create the life of your dreams. Now, this is not limited only to women who are experiencing divorce or separation. This is for any woman who is finding themselves in a transition in their life, whether it be an empty nesting or career shift or navigating parts of their career that they hadn't anticipated, relationships. Gosh, there's a myriad of things that one could be in transition with. It could simply be that you've woken up one morning and realized that this is not exactly the life that you had in mind. That's very real, and I feel like that's happening a lot these days. So this show and summit is for you. I have curated a handful of wonderful mindset specialists, casting a wide net of expertise from health, wealth, marriage, divorce, relationships, financial, grief, all sorts of things that will help you navigate your way into living the best version of yourself in your life. So stay tuned as we trickle out 21 experts over the next 21 days to help inspire and empower and help you realize that everything you need is exactly inside of you where it's always been. So join me on this little adventure, and I look forward to seeing you. Thanks so much. Welcome back to my show, From Stuck to Unstoppable. I'm your host, Christina Price, and with me today is Karin Del Maestro, who is a transformational coach with a focus on breast cancer survivors. She's created the Thrivership School, which is a safe, trauma-aware space for women to rebuild their energy, their peace, and their purpose after cancer. So I'm going to hand the floor over to her and let her introduce herself, share her story, her journey, and how she has come to be this amazing player in the transformational space for really special people who need a lot of support.
They do, and
They
more
do.
than we realize. And
That's right.
it was actually my own journey, as it is for many of us, right? Where we end up going through something challenging and we didn't realize it was going to look like it or feel like it did. And so we end up often taking that, I find, as Dean Graziosi says, taking your mess, turning it into your message.
That's right.
Yeah. And my journey through, if you're hearing an accent, let me just dispel that first of all, because otherwise that can take your brain off into this, like, where is she even from? I grew up in the UK, and I've lived in the
jealous. That's all it is.
And I've lived in the US since I was 22 years old, which was a long time ago now, because I'm now 59. So I say my accent now is just confused. It doesn't even know what it is.
It's been worn down.
It's been worn down,
right.
Like me often. But the rest of us, I like to think of myself as someone that rises from the ashes. I've been through many things in my bumpy life, including divorce, life-altering car accident, moving 10 times in the past 11 years, losing my mom, my dad, my younger brother, my entire family unit that I grew up with. And I've had to shift my career 3 major times in my life. And I've had to, like many of the people that I suspect that are watching and listening in right now, and yourself, Christina, I've had to start from scratch. I've had a blank slate where I got the opportunity to look at and say, what does it look like from here? And I know how scary and overwhelming and challenging that can feel. And one of my major moments was when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. This was back in 2018. Not only was I diagnosed with breast cancer, I was diagnosed with the BRCA2 genetic mutation, making me high risk for, it's known as the breast cancer gene, high risk for breast cancer, ovarian, eye cancer, melanoma, and others.
Yep.
And here I was saying, I've carried this genetic mutation my entire life. I was a health coach. Prior to that, I'd been a personal trainer, somebody that had always been into preventative health and wellness. And I got to say, why now? Which is something that not everybody gets to ask. But because I carried this genetic mutation, instead of looking at it as a possible life sentence, I looked at it as an opportunity to gather some data. Right. And so I got to say, what has changed in my life in the past year to 2 years? And
meaning, like, why is it showing up now? I've
why
been doing
now?
it my whole life.
Right.
What has changed? Gotcha.
Exactly. And not everybody gets to do that. If you don't carry the genetic mutation or any of the other there are many genetic mutations. I just got to say, what's different? What has happened? And as somebody that's always eaten well, I was eating all organic. I was doing all the right things there, beautifully balanced meals, moving my body, doing all of what we think are the right things. I had removed toxins from my makeup, from the house, like all of these, like additional, right? And like I'm talking, I was on the inside scoop of what to do to stay healthy. And I still got this diagnosis. And I went off down the Google rabbit hole, as we often do.
That's what it's there for, I think.
And you know what? I'm not saying that for anybody that gets a breast cancer diagnosis, I'm going to recommend that you don't do this. I did not do it, first of all. And I'll tell you why. And that's because there are so many different kinds of breast cancer, not just stages, but types of actual cancer triggered by so many different things. So do not, once you hear those words, don't do this to yourself. Don't torment yourself. Wait until you've got the full picture and you know what you're actually dealing with.
Okay.
When I had that information, which was 10 days later, so hard.
A lot can happen in 10 days.
It's
like a lot of rabbit holes. Yeah.
And I'm somebody that researches for a living. Like I, as a health coach and transformation coach, like I'm researching this stuff for a living. I did not do it until I got the information that I needed. And I'm like, okay, now I know that my diagnosis, I had hormone receptive breast cancer. Okay, so hormones, an excess of hormones is what's triggering this growth of cancer cells for me. Super valuable to know, especially as I started to put other pieces of the puzzle together.
Okay.
So off I go down this rabbit hole. I think of myself like as Sherlock Holmes putting on his hat, like magnifying glass, like off I go, right? Taking this really serious. And I came across something that not many people know about, but for me, it truly connected the dots and made all the sense. And this was the work of a gentleman called Dr. W. Douglas Brody, integrated cancer therapist, who for over 30 years studied tens of thousands of cancer patients and discovered that there's something called the cancer personality traits.
I'm writing his name down, Dr. Brody.
Yeah. And I'll share information with you and with everybody else that wants it. It's readily available on my website, curated, so it's much more legible and consumable versus the long medical documents. But what this did for me, I felt like Dr. Brody had been stalking me my entire life, because it was like I read this list of 7 things, and I was at one point in my life every single one of them. Now, they're things that many of us might relate to, but there was one in particular that highlighted why I got sick when I got sick. And it's not something that people are talking about.
Right.
And so what happened for me 1 year prior to my diagnosis was my husband and I were living in the Caribbean at the time. I got a call from the UK, where my family had remained, that my mom had been diagnosed with liver, lung, stomach, and skull cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Now, there's a blessing here, and that's that she had Alzheimer's and dementia. And my brother relayed this story to me, that she's sitting on the side of the bed in the hospital, swinging her legs like a 5-year-old on a swing. And I thought, what a gift. What a gift for her to have no clue.
The wild silver lining.
Yeah, challenging for he and I. And so 1 week later, I was actually by her bedside as she passed away. The day after her funeral, my brother almost died. And 2 weeks after that, my husband was in an absolutely horrific motorcycle accident back in the US. And we didn't know for 7 weeks if he was going to keep his right arm or not. Now, as you can imagine,
Just a little bit of stress.
just a little bit of stress, little bit of stress, a little bit of grief, a little bit of trauma. And I don't need to tell you, because I think anybody that has lived in this life understands that I'm giving you a little snippet, and you understand the minutia and the emotion and the heartache and all of the moving pieces that go on behind it. And I'm not going to go into it all, but needless to say, it was a lot.
A lot.
It was a lot.
Too much.
Too much.
Too much.
Too much. And as somebody that has always been the strong one, has always been the one that helped everybody else, for a lot of years, I would just suck it up.
Yep.
And push through it. No matter, I'd been in therapy many times after divorce, after my car accident. I was beginning to feel my feelings, but this was even too much. It was like, I was focusing on drinking enough water. That's literally all I could focus on, was to get through every day and drink enough water. That was it.
Some of the other, yep.
So as I found, I'll go back to Dr. Brody, as I found him, one of these things on the cancer personality trait list is going through an incredible traumatic or stressful time, essentially the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Interesting.
Up to 2 years prior to diagnosis.
Wow.
Okay. When I saw that, I was like, okay. Connected the dots for me. And like I said, all of the others as well were things that I had, things like being the strong one, being the one that focuses on everybody else first, being the good girl that follows all the rules, being responsible and dutiful, things that we might think are great things,
really great qualities.
And I still believe, like, I will always be the caring one. That's who I am. But, and here's the but, and this is the thing that I think is so important when we talk about going from stuck to unstoppable. This is the key. We don't do it to our own detriment.
Right.
And that is not just physically, but emotionally and mentally too. We are holistic beings, and our body speaks our mind.
So true.
Right. And so it's all of these things. And so it became very clear to me why I got sick when I did. It was too much. Nobody's fault. I didn't blame myself. And I really invite anybody that looks at these characteristics, and I'm actually going to have a way to share them with you as well, because it's part of the gift that I'm giving to everybody here. It's not about blaming yourself.
It's understanding.
It's understanding. It's accepting. I believe in, like, loving ourselves, offering ourselves compassion the way that we would a friend or a loved one or somebody else, and just saying, you know what, I say, what do we have to beat ourselves up for something that we didn't know?
Exactly. Have compassion for ourselves the same way we do for the people we love.
Absolutely. And so for me, this personality trait really guided me in how I was going to recover from breast cancer. And I was going to do it differently than I'd overcome and bounce back from all of the other things, because I now had this piece of information that to me makes sense. If we can unlearn and soften some of these personality traits, then wouldn't it make sense that it helps to lower our risk of getting sick again?
Because it's all, we theoretically know it's all connected, but there is a disconnect about how tight that connection really is between our mind and body. And they're two separate things somehow living in the same, but
they're not.
It's the same thing about how we speak to ourselves, right? Our talk. From like the littlest thing to the biggest thing, but we're all in the same cellular structure, and our energy is all connected. It all really does matter, and it all is connected and constantly influencing our physical sense of being, our interactions, how we influence and affect other people who are in our surrounding area.
Yeah.
So it's so real.
And empowering, because here's the thing, a belief is simply a thought that we keep thinking. And we can change our
Doesn't make it
thoughts.
real.
We can change our thoughts, and we
Mhm.
can put thoughts on trial and say, is that actually true? Because I know for me, growing up with zero self-esteem, zero self-confidence, like I wanted to be invisible. It comes from just feeling like I wasn't good enough. Like my voice didn't matter, all of these things. And so I would shrink myself and hide and pretend that what I wanted didn't matter. I didn't even know what I wanted. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know how to ask myself those questions.
Yeah, that's a huge.
And especially, I grew up, and I think it was probably the same here, but growing up in England in the time I did, it was still very much children will be seen and not heard. And so all of these things are relative when it comes to staying healthy and becoming unstoppable after you've gone through anything. It's not just breast cancer. This is relative to anything where you are feeling stuck, be it divorce, be it like me, a life-altering car accident where I lost everything. I lost my job as a personal trainer, my home, a relationship, everything.
Right. Any major change.
Any major change in life. And you get to apply these principles and start to move forward. And so for me, that was one of the biggest things in my journey. And this is when I teach this inside Thrivership School. There's something after breast cancer where there are survivorship programs. I didn't go through what I went through to just survive. I went through what I went through to thrive in my life, right? To truly make it my best chapter yet. And that's what I teach other breast cancer survivors to do. And by the way, I don't just work with breast cancer survivors. We have people that have gone through all different kinds of trauma, from sexual abuse to divorce to name it, right?
And obviously, the list of other health issues is longer than we can roll out. So there's so many things that people survive from. And we didn't get a chance to touch on this, so maybe we could touch on it just now, of the difference between obviously surviving and thriving, and how oftentimes once you've conquered a health scare and you've gone through a lot of trauma to survive that, and there is this, I know because we spoke about this sort of, maybe you can explain it a little bit better, like the survivor's guilt, or like you're supposed to be so grateful that you have your life and you've survived this, and you feel like crap. You just don't feel like yourself. You don't have any energy. You don't really have any lust for life. And you're feeling guilty because you're like, oh my gosh, I survived. And so many people haven't survived. And what's wrong with me?
I Googled that, by the way.
Yeah.
I Googled
Yeah.
what's wrong with
What's
me.
wrong with me?
So you are speaking very clearly and eloquently to some of the struggles. There's a huge perception in the world that when you are done with treatment, you are done, period.
Life's back. Yeah.
And we see it on social media, and I think that's part of the thing, right? People ringing the bell, there's balloons, there's banners, there's all things. That was not what I felt at all. In fact, I had a very scary and overwhelming reaction. And I remember when my plastic surgeon said to me, Karin, I'll see you in 3 months. And I fell apart. I grabbed hold of her. She probably thought I was a little crazy. And I said, but I'm not ready to pick up with you yet. Maybe I wasn't the first, right?
Yeah.
But it felt in that moment, with my amazing supportive husband sitting in the corner, and I'm one of the lucky ones that had somebody with that with, I felt so incredibly alone, because the medical team that had literally handheld me every single step of the way had now stepped back. And 3 months, now I can look back and say, oh, 3 months. But at that point in time, when I had weekly appointments, felt like a lifetime. I was crying at the drop of a hat, bone aching exhaustion, not the kind that goes away with a good night's sleep or a nap. Muscle aches and pains, like barely able to get out of bed. And I remember reaching out to my medical team and they're saying, it's normal. And I'm like, is this life from now on? Is this what it is? Like, I fought for this.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I didn't fight for this. I know there's got to be more. And so again, down those very many rabbit holes and warrens that crisscrossed and all the rest of it. And be careful if that's the route that you take, because not everything that you read is true and not everything is helpful at all. And so be careful. And this is why I have a Facebook group. This is why other people have groups. Be in a group where you have a trusted source, where your information is curated, right? So that you can get information that you can actually trust. I think is so important. But what I found out, and this was a turning point for me as well, was that 82.5% of breast cancer survivors suffer from PTSD. 82.5%. But we are told this is normal. We are not prepared for the emotional and mental struggle. We are not prepared for the fact that we feel like we're almost in a bubble watching life happen, but we're not in it. It's like you're on the sidelines watching life going by and you're not in it. So many women reach out to me when they are in the darkest place that they've ever been in their entire life. So depressed, able to get out of bed and go to work, but come home and they're back in bed kind of thing. They're wearing a mask, smiling on the outside, but really struggling on the inside. And I know that's a sensation I know many of us can relate to. But again, we're being told by our doctors it's normal. Now, I hate the word normal, by the way. I hate it. Is it common that this is what happens? Absolutely. But does that mean that you have to suck it up and just sit there and wait to feel better? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because yes, it takes time for your physical body to bounce back from what it has been through. And it takes a heck of a lot longer than you think. If you were in treatment for approximately 2 years, which was my journey, it takes approximately 2 years for you to start to get your energy back and feel like yourself again.
Wow. And do they not tell, they don't, that's
no,
not,
they don't tell you that. Nobody tells you that.
No.
Nobody tells you this. And so again, I don't tell people that and share that with them to scare them, for them to say, oh God, no, it's so that you can be gentler with yourself, set more realistic expectations, offer yourself more grace and space to heal, to recover, to understand that this takes time. Now,
and you don't have to do it alone.
You don't have to do it alone. And I don't recommend doing it alone, because when we're stuck in this isolation, and this goes for any difficult thing that we've been through, I think, that feeling of being alone and it's just you is one of the hardest feelings. And like I said, I've been through so many things and I've dealt with it on my own. Thrivership School is a group coaching program. It's the first group coaching program that I've done in my 22 plus years of working in health and wellness. We're going into now, as you and I are having this conversation, we're in our 4th year. Being in a group that is safe. I say that it's like the safety net that you feel was ripped out from under you when you heard those words from your medical team. Getting to show up, even if you're in bed in your pajamas, because we don't care.
Nobody cares.
We don't care. You don't need makeup on. We don't need a glam team. I say we're not the Real Housewives over here. We are real women, like doing our thing.
Yes.
That it doesn't matter. And walking the path with somebody that has walked this path, and you can see hope and understand that it doesn't always have to be that way. But in this group container, I can tell you that it catapults the results that people are getting, catapults. And I've had people say to me, Karin, I say things in this group I've never said in my entire life. because they feel so safe and they can be so honest and so real and so raw.
I know it's going to
And
land.
yeah. And not going to be judged. That's the thing, right? Nobody, I will not tolerate this. It's a safe place. And I speak to everybody before we invite them in because I want them to know that they're coming into the right place. And I want them to know it's going to be a good fit and vice versa. Like it's curated with people that are going to be in that space, but it catapults the results. And just, I remember one of we call them our Thrivership family because we are like family, who said to me, Karin, you know what? I don't do groups. I'm not sure if I'm going to like it. Because often, again, by the way, being the strong ones and the responsible ones, we're the ones that handle it on our own. So I already know.
You already know
because of that Cancer personality trait list. I already know this, right? So I understand. But she actually said to me, being in the group was one of the best parts of the whole program.
Such an amazing process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's very misunderstood. And whether you've been touched by breast cancer or you have friends or family, I think everybody at this point in life knows somebody that's been touched by it.
Absolutely.
Being that person that can just go and say, hey, you don't have to carry it on your own. I understand that. And that some people do very well with it. And some people are not part of that 82.5% of people dealing with trauma. But giving a space where somebody can let down their guard and not feel
really
judged.
Authentic and honest. Yeah. It's such an important place.
Yeah, really. And you get to be that for somebody. And as does anybody else that's listening to this. And I always think about it. How would I like somebody to show up for me? That's how I'm going to show up for somebody else.
And that's what's so beautiful about this whole space. And just as we wrap up, how your point of it catapulting, really what coaching does for so many people, if you're willing to participate and be authentic and vulnerable, it collapses your healing time.
100%.
It collapses the time it takes for you to have that mindset shift to see what's really possible. It collapses the time for you to find your purpose and your path again. And so it's just such a wonderful thing. It's different than traditional therapy. And it's just such a wonderful thing that we all now have access to.
Yeah.
And there's like a therapist or like a partner or like a doctor, there's chemistry. Find the right person that you align with, and you'll be amazed at how far you can go in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, 100%. And I've had so many people say to me, Karin, I've been in therapy for years. What I'm doing is I'm actually implementing what I've learned in therapy because of the tools I've now learned in coaching. And exactly, it's different. And to speak to your point, I say I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. Because as you so beautifully put, it's like choosing a partner or your best friend that you want to hang out with, or and people say to me, Karin, I don't even know why I said yes, but there was just something about you.
Right. And you're like, and that's all that it takes.
That's all it takes, literally. It's you trust that gut, because your gut, by the way,
knows. Intuition.
Trust your
and
intuition.
That's part of the process. You lose sight of that. And you're like, no, you really do. You just got to get quiet, but you always know. Your body knows. Yeah.
Body knows. And I say our gut is our guardian angels.
It is.
Yeah.
We need to lean into that more.
Yeah.
It's a practice.
It's a practice. And yes. And well, it's learning. I think we all know that it's there, but often that's the voice we're hushing. And we're doing what we think we should do, whereas in actuality, we need to reverse those
and come back down.
Yeah, and trust your gut. She will not steer you wrong.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's the truth. We'll wrap it up on that. Karin, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for your work, for the space that you provide women. It's so important, and I'm so grateful that we've crossed paths and that this show can provide a nice connection and soft landing place for people who are really in the throes of it and know that there is a whole structure and group available to really hold their hand through probably the next hardest part of the journey. But which can be the best part.
It can absolutely be the best part. It's about, like you spoke to, that willingness. Am I willing to try something different?
So
different
great.
is uncomfortable. That's
It is.
okay.
But that's where growth happens.
Exactly.
So get in there and get uncomfortable.
Yep. She just, I hope you all caught that. She put her coaching hat on there. Did you catch it? I love it.
I love it. Karin, this was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
I look forward to connecting again in the future and hope that everybody, again, if you might not be in the struggle, but chances are somebody who is, point them in Karin's direction and they'll be in good hands. So Karin, thank you again. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you.